All right, well, my editor needs to get paid, so let's do this. There are 43, no repeats. Okay, hold on. Let's lay down some rules first. If it's considered a boss encounter, then it's getting ranked. If something is eagerly flashing its name tag at me in the corner of the screen like a Costco supervisor, then I'm gonna count it as a boss, okay? Like, this guy isn't a boss. This guy, not a boss. Nope, not him either. Bosses are going to be judged on their difficulty using tools, abilities, and other items that can be obtained prior, but without any skips, glitches, or sequence breaking, or any of that fancy stuff. I'm not going to tell you how good the circlet is against 4th chorus or something, for example, because even if it is true, it's kind of just pointless. I think the top and bottom buns of this slop sandwich are pretty definitively set here. The most contentious part of this dish is going to be right in the middle, right in the juicy condiments, and that's what I'm most excited for. So I hope y'all like contemptible opinion casserole, because this kitchen's gonna be in flames here in about 37 minutes. Everything about who you are is a commodity for sociopaths. It's very easy to feel digitally vulnerable anywhere outside of your house nowadays. And yeah, it's cool watching shows you normally can't because it thinks you're logging in from Constantinople or some shit, but it doesn't really protect you from anything, does it? And that's why if you follow the pinned link in the comments, you'll see that NordVPN is becoming more than just a VPN. Threat protection is being introduced to desktop applications, which safeguards your PC from malware, trackers, intrusive ads, fake shops, and scams designed to look like legitimate websites. Nord's threat protection is actually really good at weeding these out. It's even been tested and recognized by multiple leading cybersecurity labs. And since threat protection is technically a separate feature, you can have it on even if you're not connected to a VPN server. Also, Dark Web Monitor. This allows you to get instant alerts about leaked information and protect all your accounts before someone does something illegal with it. And there's even a page on their website that just gives you a free once-over just to let you know if your email has been grabbed by brokers and what to do about it if it is. All of this, and you still get the most fundamental features: DDoS prevention, phishing prevention, accessing geo-restricted content, all the juice that VPNs nowadays usually come with. Same deal as always, grab the 2-year plan, get 4 more months on top of that, you know the vibes. Just use the link nordvpn.com/rustyvpn in the description and the pinned comment, and if there's ever any second thoughts, you've got 30 days to change your mind. Number 46, Moss Mother. Meagerly measuring in at 120 HP, the Moss Mother is a miserable maiden model of the game's meticulous mechanics at most. A meaningless memory game with a mission to mold and motivate you, make you ready for the mid-game multiplex and its many mainline matchups to be. But all this muscly mosquito can do is mindlessly mobilize across your monitor like it just munched on methamphetamines. I might be making mountains out of molehills here, but the mountain of monotony this matriarch makes manifest gives me a multisensory malfunction. This is Mount Madness, and we're at the mouth. Being most mindful of melodrama, with minimum misrepresentation, Moss Mother is materially makeshift, manpower misguided and misplaced, a mistress of mundanity that merely mocks the motions and machinations of those more memorable by multiple magnitudes. Number 45, Garmond Zaza. Being a Whispering Vaults boss means already going through the game having dealt with some pretty intimidating threats, so Garmond Zaza being this far into the mid-game felt like a personal slight. Most of Silksong's easiest bosses are defined by a singular attack pattern that's very easy to dodge and punish, but this guy breaks the mold by having 4 completely different attacks that are all shitty. He can get Guilty Gear comboed into the spikes below the platform, and also he takes damage from the fall, albeit negligible damage, but damage nonetheless. He also seems really confused on how his own attacks are supposed to work. Like, I could be tack reloading all my tools on the other side of the screen and he would suddenly decide now is the time to start swatting flies. I don't know how obvious it is in this footage, but I was busy stuffing my face with mac and cheese and I was only playing with one hand on the controller and he was still getting his ass whooped. Huh. Shit, what a joke. Number 44, the Plasmified Zango. So there's no fog wall or magic door or anything locking you inside the room like other bosses, and I actually found it kinda hilarious that you can just leave the room and heal up and come back like you would a standard scene. There are a couple other bosses you can do this with, but this one is especially hilarious because the max HP debuffs he accumulates from being poked with the Alchemist patented spring-loaded syringe will stay on him even if you exit the room and come back, so there's officially zero reason why anyone should be having trouble with this boss, no matter how good his HP regen over time is. But I'm going to explain why his HP regen over time is also dog shit, just for extra measure. The Zango heals for 5 HP every 3/4 of a second, and this only kicks in after a small period of not taking damage. The same is true for all plasmid enemies in the Wormways. Problem is, both enemies can create some pretty exhausting situation where getting in your damage is just very difficult without the needle file. Plasmids can burrow into the ground, and plasmiduses are rooted to the ceiling, making their projectile spread way meaner, on top of just being much harder to hit. The Zango has neither of these advantages, gets decimated at range during the start of the fight because his blobs never travel that far, and gets decimated up close near the end because his blobs cover such a vast distance that they almost always fly over you. Cross him up when he scuttles, repeat until dead. And all of that still assuming you didn't pick up the needle file from Dr. Tylenol upstairs. Number 43, the Summoned Saviour. This one earns itself my double vote for both one of the easiest and one of the worst bosses in the game. And I think 80% of that experience had to do with the fetch quest that was attached to it. Z left her son at the gas station or some shit, and apparently that's now my responsibility. So now she spins the slot machine and gives you 3 of 6 predetermined locations on the map where the vassal notes are located, one of which will always spawn somewhere at the ass end of Act 2. Ducts, halls, or Karak. All of which require fade down if you're not sequence breaking. And like, none of this is even a problem of the quest itself. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me a good old tension ramp, but with post-quest hindsight, it is way too easy for disappointment to set in, knowing all this leads to what's basically a 500 HP dartboard of a boss, with quest locations that just happened to route in some of the game's best equipment along the way. I marched into this room with my chest out, ready to sink my teeth into a goddamn mammoth. And of course this is Steel Soul, so I'm gonna be overly cautious. Of course I'm gonna stand on the opposite side of the room spamming conch cutters at it. I just wasn't expecting that to actually work. I think I've done this quest and killed this boss maybe 6 times in total since the game came out last September. I still don't know what this boss does. Number 42, the Voltvyrm. What the hell is a zap core enemy? Man, some of these file names are whack. The Voltvyrm fits the ongoing theme of coral-related bosses having the most miserable runbacks, but whenever I try to think of anything notable to say about the boss itself, I can just feel the buffering symbol playing in my own head. Like, it's just not happening. There's nothing memorable about this boss at all. For starters, the combat loop is painfully boring. It spawns in one of its 3 or 4 predictable locations on the ceiling, and the way it telegraphs its AoEs ensures that you always have time to sink in at least 2 or 3 hits per spawn. The lightning column attack can either start from the outer edges of the room and travel inward, start in the middle and travel outward, or start on the edges and then the middle before traveling outward from there. And I'm detailing all of this out because I think it's kind of hilarious how pathetic this attack is in practice. Because the lightning columns activate the way they do, the boss is always exposed for at least like 1 or 2 full attacks, sometimes even more than that depending on where it spawns. The circular AoEs are only marginally more threatening, and they still only appear in like 2 or 3 different patterns that can be easily memorized without much trouble. 550 HP also feels like next to nothing, considering the boss has incredibly predictable spawn points, and Sands of Karak is nearing the end of Act 2, so you've probably found more than enough tools and abilities to deal with it. Number 41, the Skull Tyrant. This boss has its own side quest, Open Up and Bone Bottom, after you get the Cling Grip and Shellwood, and despite its intimidating presence and high health pool, the one thing it seems to not be good at is following up on that intimidation and actually being threatening. This is supposed to be the Marrow's apex predator, but they only have 3 attacks, 2 of which are just slightly different flavors of bounce, hit, ground, rock, fall down, and both times you encounter it, it happens in a room where there's just some dumb exploit related to the room geometry that's surrounding it. Like if it's in the one for the side quest, you just bunker down here in this little nook and it'll make the boss behavior very predictable, allowing you to easily just set up damage zones. And if it's the one in Bone Bottom, just cross the chasm over on the left side of the village and he won't be able to reach you. As for the combat itself, tacks and a couple crafting kits chew him up just fine. GG, go next. Number 40, Cogwork Dancers. I will say, obviously telegraphed attacks are really important because I feel like it prevents the boss from being bullshit most of the time. This might be a little too much telegraphing. I think we've reached a point. Everything these clankers do are so telegraphed. Their attacks, the direction they moved, even down to the tempo at which they attack, which is further reinforced by listening to the game's own soundtrack. They don't have a shared HP pool a la Great Conchflies, but focusing on one and reducing its HP to 0 will always start the next phase of the fight. And when the third phase ends, whatever dancer you're attacking will just die permanently, and now you're only fighting one of them. Honestly, it's a wonderful idea for a boss, and I think it might be one of the game's coolest encounters, thematically speaking. The final phase suddenly falling flat on purpose because you've taken out one of the dancers, and now the other one is just waltzing around performing incomplete attacks because its partner is missing. Like, that was such a memorable sequence. But I honestly think the unique mechanic reveals a bit too much information about who you're fighting, and that just results in a boss fight with very little surprises. Number 39, the Moss Mother Duo. Wow, damn, there's 2 of them now. No, this game does this a lot, now that I think about it. I think I've officially found my least favorite duo boss format of all time. Like, imagine if instead of Ornstein and Smo, we got Ornstein and slightly healthier Ornstein. As bad as Elden Ring is with its duo fights, they would at least have, like, different weapons or something. I'm not asking for one of them to enter the room with a halberd or some shit, just, I don't know, one of them summons ads while the other one flies at you. There you go. There's your duo boss. The boss actually does get way cooler if encountered during Act 3, because what I'm talking about actually kinda happens when they both get black-threaded. Since one of them shoots void globs at you, the other one gets the tendril attack, and they both end up with 700 HP. Fighting them in this condition would easily elevate them at least 2 tiers above where they are now, but waiting until Act 3 to zero them out would mean foregoing Weavelight, and ignoring some of Weavelight's biggest payoffs during the mid-game, like helping out with the platforming in Mount Fae. So I feel like putting off this boss until so far in the game just isn't really something you should be doing for, you know, like a proper experience. If you've done everything else in the game already and you just want to see what the ringer puts you through, I would check it out. It turns into a decently hard fight. Number 38, Great Conchflies. There is no mincing words or distorted intent with this pair of shit missiles. Their first phase is their only phase, and that phase contains exactly one behavior. Fire up the drill and don't stop until the bitch in the red dress is dead. 400 HP seems on par with how healthy a boss would be in this stage of the game, but whittling them down feels extremely easy because both enemies actually share the same health bar. Not only does this eliminate the need to focus on one specific target for the whole fight, but AoE abilities like Threadstorm can deal massive damage to both targets, doubling its efficiency. This, in addition to their 1.3 damage modifier when attacked with a level 1 needle, makes the fight go by incredibly quickly, and the pillar of sand indicating their direction of attack kinda just spoils every single surprise they could have possibly thrown at you anyways. This entire fight is just one giant positioning check, and it's one you've already been thoroughly taught by previous bosses like Bellbeast, Widow's second phase, and Savage Beastfly if you gave enough of a shit about the Beast Crust. Number 37, the Palestag. Man, I used to hate fighting this Cabbage Patch Bambi bitch. Her main attack loop consists of bullet spam, a prompt relocation to another part of the room, and then more bullet spam. And if it's your first time fighting her, it's easy to trick yourself into just trying your best to keep up with her teleports, which almost always leads to you taking unnecessary damage. Honestly, the only way to fight this boss is to just out-spam the spammer. She cannot stand Volt Vessels, or Pale Nails, or lightning in any form, or anything that travels in a straight line for that matter. Trying to brute force close-range tactics is exactly what this boss is trying to get you to do. Locking down the space in the middle of the room not only gives you time to move around all her spam, but also ensures you're almost always within striking distance, no matter where she teleports to. When she's on the lily pad near the pond, just throw down a Volt Spear. If she's up top, jump up and Threadstorm her through the platform. If she's left, just to throw shit at her. She has like negative HP for an Act 3 boss. This won't take you more than like 5 rotations, I promise. Number 36, Father of the Flame. Your dad left 7 years ago to pick up milk. My dad was used as pyre kindling and became the progenitor of a forest god. Don't you dare compare us. And don't say the boss is easy either, because that's my dad you're talking about, and you're gonna hurt my feelings. Even if it is true. Well, I mean, partly. He is very easy to take down, but he does have some bullshittery that can dick over certain builds if you don't see it coming. The main hurdle being, you can't regenerate Silk via needle hits, so unless you have Reserve Bind or Druid's Eyes, binding during this fight is pretty much just out of the question. Cogflies don't register the lanterns as enemies, so they just don't attack anything. Pimpillos just pass right through them. Magma Bell is just about mandatory since every bit of damage you'll take is double hit, yet for every one caution sign this boss throws out, there's like 2 or 3 other things about it that make it so easy that it almost just doesn't matter. The vertical hitbox from Volt Vessels can hit multiple lanterns without even needing to leave the ground. Threadstorm has a wide enough radius to hit both lanterns on the right. Circlet and Drill can double team the shit out of the Pyre Core during the second phase. The vertical pogos on Reaper and Wanderer can both help with keeping yourself centered, which in turn helps with navigating around the wisps. Like, there's just, yeah, I know you can't regenerate Silk. Please don't let that trick you into thinking this boss is hard. It's not. Number 35, Deep Docks Lace. You know, replaying this game, I never realized how many different ways you can just flat out skip this boss. Buying the simple key from Peb opens up 2 different routing options where you can either venture through Wormways and wind up in Shellwood, or you can open the door in Lower Deep Docks and access the far fields from a breakable wall. The fight itself is reminiscent of the Knight's Green Path encounter with Hornet in the first game, and about the same difficulty to match. Lace has a lot of attacks and flourishes that look intimidating on a first playthrough, like the double slash and that somersault dive combo she does, but all of her attacks are honestly incredibly easy to space out. Her counterattack when in parry stance inflicts double damage, but this can be avoided as simply as just whacking her and then running in the opposite direction, or jumping over it. or jumping over it and then pogoing off of her giant 5-head. Knocking her into the lava when staggering her also does 40 damage, which is, that's insane for early game. Like, she only has like 250 HP or something. Almost all of her attacks launch her halfway across the platform anyway, so just like tease one side of it, bait out her attacks that way and whack her a couple times, and eventually, like, she'll just fall in by herself. She also has this cool little interaction where she can deflect pins you throw at her from outside the arena, and she just like gets offended and stops humming. You can hear the deflect happening when she does it, but I had to use a camera mod to actually get footage of her, like, in the act. Fun boss. Easy as shit, but fun boss. Number 34, Bell Beast. I remember dying exactly once to this boss, and judging by how other first runs went, it sounds like this is the general consensus. Her first phase is kind of weird because she only starts with like 2 basic attacks, being the ground burrow and the basic horizontal charge, but once she gets down to 80% HP, a new attack is possible where she can surface in the center of the room and start summoning bells. Everything deals 2 damage in this fight, and that manages to be intimidating for like 5 seconds because of how slow she is to attack and how easy it is to look for punish windows, and when the second phase begins, she just kinda screams angrily at you and summons 1 additional bell when she surfaces at the center, and a bell also drops from the ceiling whenever she's done with an attack. Yeah, it's not really much of a shift in tactics, rather just a more aggressive first phase with some extra spam in hopes that you'll get inside your own head and cock something up. Most early game bosses actually tend to share this strategy. Number 33, Fourth Chorus. The defense modifiers go out of their way to really make sure fighting this boss at any point in the game feels the exact same. And I think the reasoning for this is because poking around in the game's code reveals that this boss has stagger markers based on HP instead of hits taken, which is very unique. It staggers at 450 HP, 325 HP, and then finally at 200. Once you've shaved it down that far, the boulder above its head conveniently becomes active, at which point you can hover up to the ceiling and whack both sides of it to loosen up the debris, giving you a comically free W. The falling rock attack is easy to dodge around. The horizontal swipe attacks have not hit a single player to have ever played, they're so miserably telegraphed. And if you can mind your footing when he starts taking out platforms and not take an unlucky swim in the fire water, then you'll honestly be fine. Ain't nothing to it. Number 32, Sister Splinter. This bitter old bush has some of the weirdest HP benchmarks that ever appear in the game. First and most obviously, her HP is 310? Which is, like, I get the boss spends less time being available to attack since she's on the ceiling. Like, her having less HP makes sense, but is there a reason behind 310 specifically or something? She aggressively palm strikes the ground like that one scene in Kung Fu Hustle, only she does it so accurately that you almost never get hit by it. Deforest her down to 80% HP, and she starts summoning Splinter bark ads that get one-tapped by the skill you picked up at the beginning of the game. You'll know you're approaching the final stretch when she covers the room in vines, which can also be conveniently cleared with one use of Silk Spear. So when you see this attack, just stand in the middle of the room, wait until they're all spawned in, and then fire one off in your favorite direction. This attack is admittedly kinda good at forcing panic movements that lead to you readjusting just a little too much and taking unnecessary damage, but the triple bitch slaps are still easy to punish. The vine attacks actually lead to her becoming less aggressive later on in the fight, and even the slightest proficiency with Silk Spear gets you a ton of mileage. Number 31, Bell Eater. Alright, first major contention point of the video, here we go. I'm so glad I decided to give this game another couple pass-throughs before writing this, because holy shit, this boss was not as hard as I remember. Consider this a quintessential reminder that sometimes just bringing the right tool for the job makes all the difference. 800 HP goes by incredibly fast when the game doesn't actually care about all of it, because whittling the boss HP down to 320 automatically triggers it to resurface at the middle of the room, at which point the Bell Beast rips through its tail on the right and finishes it off from there. So when the room widens up at the start of its second phase, you're actually just a little more than halfway to go, about like 55% give or take. As far as the combat itself goes, I don't know, just don't hammer a nail with the screwdriver, okay? That's my advice. Don't try and force shit you know won't work because you're too stubborn. Sting shards can be placed right where it spawns in from the ceiling, and using Quick Sling to throw 2 of them almost guarantees that at least one of them will detonate manually, and if it's close enough to the squishy part of the boss, it's gonna result in a lot more damage. Volt Vessels take care of it insanely fast since you can redirect it last minute, and it usually stays on screen long enough to take the full zap. Threadstorm is also nice because you can watch where the ceiling one spawns in, position yourself to the side of it, and just let her rip without fear of getting hit by anything stupid. And implementing all 3 of these at once makes it feel like you didn't even fight a boss, honestly. More like you just watched a movie. Or a nature documentary on the world's dumbest centipede. Number 30, Disgraced Chef Lugoli. Nah, bitch, not while I got the anti-AIDS necklace on. At 50% HP, the only thing about the fight that changes is the single new attack she gains where she dives into the muck below and then pops back up. None of which should mean anything to you so long as you have the anti-AIDS fit. It's honestly a basic fight. It's so painfully basic that I have trouble coming up with practical advice for it that isn't just dodge in this direction when she does this attack. Watch out for ass. So I think I'm okay with just signing off on this one with a reminder that she can be fought in Act 3 and gets significantly less fun upon doing so. Number 29, Gurr the Outcast. This boss throws out traps with an indiscriminate carelessness that's almost respectable. I don't know if these traps have homing properties or anything, but you could show it to me point blank in the game's own code and I would still just choose not to believe it. It feels like he's tossing out trash from a third-story window, and getting hit by one of them makes you feel like you belong in the dumpster he's aiming at. He's so easy but not at the same time. I've taken so many lazy hits from this boss and it still never feels like I've actually been in danger of dying, because for every one time I take damage, he's always taking like 3 or 4 hits, or I was able to heal immediately after, or both. If Silksong's Godmaster ever comes out, like if they want to head in that direction for like DLCs and stuff, we need to keep an eye on this big bitch because he's lined up to be this game's Markov. Sometimes it pays to be proactive. Most of the time, actually. Gurr challenges the course of this trend so harshly that standing completely still sometimes feels like the only way to not get your ass kicked. But if you're still the restless-legged impatient type, Silkshot and Pinpillows can both one-tap his traps, although Pinpillows are a little less reliable at doing so. Number 28, Watcher at the Edge. This could have been a cool and kind of difficult boss if it weren't for the fact that we're already carrying half of Farloom's arsenal on our backs on our way to fight him. Honestly, finding out a boss was even up here was more challenging than actually fighting him because I would just forget I had Silksore half the time it was ever necessary. 900 HP doesn't last long at all in the final act of the game, and even less so when all your telegraphs can only be made more parryable if they came with their own dedicated QTEs. Judging by how late you fight him, his HP feels roughly Phantom adjacent, but without any of the advanced tactics or phase shifts that make Phantom challenging. Circlet can kind of passively carry the whole fight if you have it equipped, because catching him on a descent can knock him out of the way just enough for his slam attack to almost never hit you. I think the funniest thing about the fight that almost no one talks about is how easy it is to just play around the left side of the room and whack his ass into the Sandcarver pit. He'll usually take around like 15 or more damage depending on how appealing he finds the little worms. Number 27, the Broodmother. Her health pool is a little thin for an Act 2 boss, especially since you're likely to find it so late into Act 2 since you have to both enter the boss room at least once and finish at least 5 side quests in Songclave, but I'm gonna be real, this bitch got some mix-ups I wasn't ready for. It's basically Gurr the Outcast, but if the traps moved and exploded and smelled like he shoved them up his ass prior to fighting you. Mix in a little bit of CC shenanigans with her glob attacks and a Groodmother pinball slam during her second phase, and suddenly the boss vaguely resembles something akin to a threat. What's even more impressive is the boss has a decent variety of tactics and movement and still feels absolutely miserable to fight, but maybe that's just because I don't like the slab that much. I don't think anyone does. I mean, it's a giant prison. I think this boss also has one of the cooler lore insights in the game, since returning to the room later on in the game just has you finding a little broodling fly in the boss's place. And this is important because the Hunter's Journal tells you that the Broodmother is the source of all the jailers patrolling the slab, leading to a particularly cold realization that all the flies in the slab are just patrolling there because of this inherited guilt from the Broodmother. And killing her didn't even really do anything except start the cycle over again, because that little twerp's gonna grow up into another Broodmother with another 100 or so children, and it's just gonna be a great time for everyone all over again. God, this game, I love it. I love how happy this game is. Number 26, Groal the Great. I think I may have accidentally given this dude a buff by including gauntlets, because Groal is absolutely not hard by any stretch. And it's not even like the pre-boss gauntlet is that hard or anything either, but I think the deciding factor for most players is going to be whether or not they have access to lightning attacks, either with Volt Vessels obtained from the Memoriam or with the Volt Filament obtained from the Voltvyrm, both of which also require Fade Down to reach. Obtaining either of these items allow you to exercise a hilariously effective control over the arena since half the floor is just water, and the gauntlet's enemies use the lake to spawn in. Pimpillos can be thrown into Groal's mouth when he tries to slurp you up, or you can just let him eat you and gain a shitload of silk by doing that. Apparently that's a strat people do. I don't do it sounds fucking nuts. And the Wreath of Purity also exists to prevent any AIDS you would have normally contracted during the tussle. I sympathize with the frustration this dude gave us early on, but looking back now, this fight sequence has way too many hard counters available for so many to talk it up like it's some brick wall skill check. Number 25, Crawfather. Underrated fight in my opinion. Everything feels just right without feeling too overbearing. The defense modifiers feel reasonable, the attacks are decently telegraphed, HP is high enough without feeling like a damage sponge. The ads could stand to be more threatening, but ignoring them outright also doesn't feel completely safe. And this leads into a large part of why I think the fight is so much fun, at least for me. Crawfather himself is very ground-based, and therefore vulnerable to grounded tools like Cogwheel and Tax. The ads, however, are vulnerable to anti-air equipment like Sting Shard, Threefold Pin, and Curve Sickle, but this tactic also gets countered by the Crawfather's notably stylish headpiece, creating what I think is a very fun dynamic where going after either the boss or the ads require a clear yet very separate commitment. No obvious behavior that signals any significant shift in tactics, but the boss does gain access to a new attack at 60% HP, which is the hexadirectional chain spikes that I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I've ever been hit by this a single time. I don't know a single person who's been hit. I have not seen video footage of anyone getting hit by this attack. Number 24, Nyleth. I cannot wait to see the responses to this one. Like, I am unironically excited. I think if you had a shitload of trouble with a late game boss that suddenly throws you a massive mechanical curveball, you can be as frustrated as you want that it's not working with builds you've gotten really good with, and also recognize the breadth of tools and equipment the game is trying to throw at you that would just make the combat flow so much more tolerable. Like, I think both of these statements can exist in the same space. Imagine if you were fighting a boss and the ground just disappears and then thousands of people immediately tell you not to be angry about it. Like, you're gonna be like, hey, fuck you, buddy, the floor's fucking gone. You're not gonna think about how valuable Ascendant Grip would have been here, or that Delver Drill is an amazingly good punish when she switches sides, or that Volt Spear gets insanely reliable damage because she's permanently stuck to the wall and can't dodge the vertical hitbox. If you think Nyleth is hard, don't let anyone tell you she isn't. Just let the frustration happen. Keep running that shit back, throw out as many of those shitty chakra rings as you feel you're able, and then when you finally got it out of your system and you start getting just a little curious, these babies are gonna be right here waiting for you with a grin and a handshake. And once you come around to using them, you're gonna laugh at all the off-kilter tactics you tried to brute force when Ascendant Grip and any red tool that travels in a straight line is servicing your ass just fine. You deserve to have that moment. Just slow the hell down, stop trying to speedrun everything, and just pay attention to what you're doing. Number 23, Moorwing. This boss used to be a way harder fight because all of its blade projectiles used to deal 2 damage, which made for a pretty relentless experience during phase 2 because this attack is what most notably changes. The boss now fires 2 blades, the second of which can loop back around to Moorwing's position. There's another blade fired after its swoop attack, and the upside down toss fires 2 blades that converge at the middle and then continue traveling indefinitely, both of which take advantage of aggressive playstyles. After the nerf that took away double damage from the blades, Moorwing isn't nearly the brick wall it used to be back then. Talking to Garmond when you encounter them in Greymoor leads to them assisting in fighting the boss shortly after you start combat with it, and even a level 1 needle can still inflict 10 damage to the boss, which in turn makes Silk Spear and Threadstorm feel way stronger than they normally would. Facing it when black threaded is a different story, since not only is its HP doubled to 1200, but its defense modifiers have likely dipped just under a flat 1-to-1, depending on how often you upgraded your needle, no Garmond to help out with chip damage, and the additional Silk Leech that comes with getting hit by void attacks, all of which makes the fight feel much longer by comparison. I'm just gonna be real, I can't think of a single boss I would actually recommend fighting during Act 3. Like, these, you need to eradicate these bitches as soon as possible. Like, do not activate Act 3 while they're alive. Number 22, Grandmother Silk. 1200 HP really does not go as far as it sounds like it does, especially at the very end of Act 2. I'm sorry, 1204, whatever. What the fuck? The lack of contact damage when your hitbox overlaps with hers is probably like 90% of the reason this boss doesn't feel nearly as hard as it would've, and honestly, I'm thankful for that. If you hide an entire ending behind killing it with what might be the shittiest debuff I've ever seen in any video game, I kinda think it makes sense that it's not all that challenging, for a final boss at least. I think when comparing her to most of the Act 3 bosses, she does seem trivial, but that's not to say her fight doesn't have its own share of question marks. For every attack that can be dodged by standing still and laughing, there's also an instance of getting grab ass for 3 HP because one of her strings grazed your toenail or something. This is an attack she has access to for just about the entire fight, but the rate at which the attack is performed makes it kind of a non-issue. Like in this one clip I was recording, she successfully grabbed me 3 of 3 times that attack was performed, but she's just so easy to hit and heal around that I still never felt like I was in real danger. Delver Drill sinks in some damn good numbers because of how infrequently she relocates. Threadstorm dices are up pretty good. Cogflies and Lantern together deal good passive damage. Sawtooth Circlet is dumb as shit. There's just too many builds that do well against her for this boss to ever feel that threatening. Number 21, Clover Dancers. Cogwork Dancers prepares you a little too well for this fight, I think. The only new attack is the Tornado, and once you learn how to move around it, it just feels like a faster Cogwork Dancers fight. It's not hard to get caught out of position when you go for a risky hit or try to throw down a tool, but since you can only damage the Green Bean Prince himself, tunnel vision strats end up being pretty comfortable here. Dwindle him down to 50% HP, and almost nothing about the fight changes, except now the Phantom's attacks are staggered, similar to Phase 3 of the Cogwork Dancers fight. I said just about nothing new, I lied. It's literally 0 movements and attacks that you haven't seen before. The Tornado attack stays the same too. The Clover Dancers Light Beam attack is now always done twice in a row, whereas Cogwork Dancers would only do it once mainly and twice occasionally. And I think in some ways it makes it easier to play around, because now you always know what to expect from this specific attack. I don't know, it was a cool fight, but it's not really, it's kind of nothing, if I'm being honest. Number 20, Lost Garmond. 900 HP for an Act 3 boss, a hitbox big enough to absorb spam even if you kinda suck at aiming, and against all odds, he's actually not a complete pussy. I'd be proud of him if I weren't crying buckets right now. He has a new quick jab attack that's basically a 3-hit stab combo with the option of changing direction on his final stab, but being either far enough in the air or just far enough away from him at the time seems like a pretty consistent way to avoid it. I don't know, it's just one of those attacks that you dodge once or twice and you immediately know how it works. The actual threat is introduced when you realize he is black-threaded and therefore gets his honorary glob spam license, and boy is he eager to test out his new toys because it's practically all he does now. His most common attack is probably his most annoying attack, where he just shoots 4 arcing projectiles that move slightly upward as he fires them. If you get to where you can dodge this attack reliably, there's just about nothing else he can threaten you with. Drill his ass when he goes for a dive, basic melees can punish his triple stab, conch cutters, quick sling, you know the vibes. Number 19, Second Sentinel. This dude got mix-ups as shit, but his lack of phase changes can make his main tactics feel pretty predictable after just a short while. Getting the Conductor's Melody, and therefore completing the High Halls Gauntlet, is a prerequisite for the Songclave side quest this boss is attached to. So we're basically like in the loose end stage of Act 2 at this point, so a meager 800 HP should just be chump shit to you by now. He's got a parry that can be jumped or pogoed over, he can Shaman Crest your ass either from across the room or from above at an angle, and a lot of this fight just boils down to knowing what punishes you can and can't get away with. Pretty fun, pretty quick. It's a boss. It is a Silksong boss. Number 18, Crust King Khann. Okay, so to immediately answer your first question, this video's ranking criteria gave King of the Krusty Krab a nice crusty bonus. I said I would include whatever respawns upon death as part of the boss, and for tall, fat, and crusty over here, that means lumping him in with the combat gauntlet prior. What lies within this gauntlet, you ask? Only the roughest crowd of punks in the whole salty spittoon. I'm glad I don't have to worry about any of these dudes outside the Coral Tower. The fight with King Krusty Cock himself is kind of underwhelming. He proudly defends his position as the CEO of Zoning, but all of his attacks have both a distinct animation and a lingering crust trail that lets you exactly know where he plans to park his bullshit. His second phase triggers at 40% HP, and his only new attack from this point is probably the one I've never been hit by, which is his Metroidvania classic Spikes from Ceiling maneuver. His Crossing Coral attack, where he summons 2 diagonal pillars around him, now gets 2 subsequent pillars that also rarely seem to hit me, but he has a much faster recovery time during this phase, and that can lead to getting caught out of position if you're not paying attention. Honestly, it feels weird putting him this far up here. Like, he's not hard, it's just that he's one of the only bosses that involve fighting through his various minions as a prerequisite. Then again, he is a king with a lot of loyal minions, so I guess the vibe does track. Number 17, Raging Conchfly. Oh, another boss that wasn't as hard as I remember it being. I don't think saying its tactics are the exact same as its prior fight, but just sped up is completely accurate, because that still leaves out the Conchfly ads that it spawns in during its second phase, but the screen time they get is next to nothing since they attack once and then immediately disappear from the fight. It's literally just like a basic spike summon attack, just with a little salt thrown on it, I guess. It also has an attack where it retreats to one side of the screen and summons in 3 Conchflies that all fly in a horizontal direction. But I also find this easy to dodge because of how conveniently delayed their charge attacks are. The abrupt increase in pace is a bit of a jump scare, and 820 HP on a boss with this little spotlight does take a second to whittle down, but honestly its most threatening maneuver is when it stops charging just to hawk up a drill at you. If you can master getting around that attack, this boss is pretty much free. Number 16, Forebrothers, Signis, and Gron. 1. Okay, so I'm just assuming you have the Magma Bell on for this one. You're already in deep docks to begin with, so like there's no reason why you shouldn't, and literally all of their attacks deal fire damage, except like contact damage, I guess. Not having Magma Bell slotted into one of your blues here is just asking for a hard time, and it's not even a fun challenge. Like, you just feel stupid if you don't equip it. To be honest, that's the only worthwhile piece of advice I have for this boss. Just use Magma Bell, everything else just kind of falls into place by itself. Actually, okay, there's one other big detail about this boss I think should be mentioned. So, Gron enters the fight once you've taken Signis to half HP, and this is where I would recommend just ignoring Gron and bursting down Signis anyways, because if you defeat one of them and whoever's left has like less than I think like 50% HP, they're just gonna get refunded 200 of their health up to that amount. And Signis being at that HP threshold is already the trigger for Gron to enter the fight anyways, so you might as well just finish him off. There's no big reason to revisit Deep Docks until Act 3, but I would go out of your way to take care of this boss anyways, because if you put this boss off until the final act, the ads become black-threaded and they just turn into complete bitches. Like, they do not die. Number 15, the Unravelled. I mean, he's a bit of a bitch for sure, but I also think a lot of players make the mistake of fighting him a little too early. 1000 HP doesn't just go down this fresh out of Act 1, like, you gotta take your time with that shit. And being this locked in for 3 minutes trying to dodge missiles with tracking this awkward with what I'm assuming would be 7 or even less HP at this point is just, it's making a headache for yourself. If you're at this boss, then that means you literally just got a new movement ability. Like, go climb the mountain first, or at least wait until you can level 3 your needle, because his modifiers don't start changing until level 4. This and 4th Chorus, to my knowledge, are the only 2 bosses that have HP values tied to when they stagger. This one staggers once at 80% HP, and then again at 40%, which is a nice, reliable way of tracking your progress during the fight. Number 14, the Pinstress. I was expecting an honorable duel, and I got a Galaga simulator. Dodging through bullet spam and shit. Farloom's only living master swordswoman who still practices her craft, and this is what she brings to the table. Like, weren't the Sentinels in the Citadel programmed after her attacks or something? I don't see them throwing office supplies at anyone. I hope your sister in the Farfields gets her own boss battle in a DLC and she weaves your parachute dress into a triple knot. This boss does not look hard when you're just watching gameplay from an outside perspective, but I'm putting in a 9 to 5 here keeping up with her bullshit in this footage. The bullet spam is unexpected but not hard to dodge around, but the shenanigans start shenaniganing when we look at her diving stab attack. The adjustment angle on this is so flexible. Like, I tried to just run under her when she was lining this up, and she just aimed it right down at the floor and hit me anyway, like almost in a straight vertical line. My personal least favorite behavior of hers is when she charges up a needle strike attack and then pulls out Drifter Cloak and just floats around for a few seconds to let you guess when she's gonna do it. Like, oh, sorry, I guess I booted up Street Fighter by accident. That game starts with an S2, you know? Pretty common mistake. Number 13 and 12, Phantom and the Last Judge. I think Silksong actually did a really great job balancing both of the final Act 1 bosses in a way that gave an equal enough challenge while having completely different mechanics. I can have this opinion and also be lazy enough to cram 2 bosses into 1 paragraph. These behaviors are not mutually exclusive. Do you understand? That was kind of a half joke. There is like an actual reason for this. I wanted to lump these 2 in together because you can actually find a lot of little similarities in their tactics. Both bosses gain 1 new attack at a similar HP benchmark, which is Phantom's slam attack that's telegraphed by a flash of light, and Last Judge ignites their sensor and starts dealing fire damage. Both bosses also have their own signature Desperation attack that signals their final phase, also at around the same HP benchmark, where the Last Judge swings around their sensor and creates multiple fire ring patterns, and the Phantom performs the same steam column attack 5 times in quick succession. Both bosses conclude their own fights with a unique and failable gimmick, whether it's parrying the Phantom or avoiding the Last Judge's final explosion. Both bosses have the same defense modifiers, both require passage through a challenging platforming area with a unique setback. One has more maximum HP while the other takes more hits to stagger. The overlap here is far from coincidence, and there's strong evidence that both diverging paths to the Citadel, up to and including the bosses themselves, aim to teach you the exact same lessons, just in completely different ways, and I just think that's cool as shit, and I wanted to spotlight it. Number 11, Savage Beastfly. I've sunk thousands into the most contemporary scientific research available, and I would like to share the following empirical findings. This guy fucking sucks. He can summon ads, he can headbutt floors, I don't give a shit about any of that. This boss is hard because of 1 attack, and we're going to talk about it. We're talking about a Titan of Titans, the waterfowl dance of Silksong, the Beastfly patented triple charge. On the surface, a very simple attack. He picks the direction you're in, charges, turns around, and charges, and then turns around and charges a third and final time. If it hits a wall at any point during this attack, it'll stop the attack entirely. Most players will see this attack and think, oh, it's above me, so the next charge is gonna be closer to the floor, and the final charge will be back in the air again. Wrong! You see, science tells a different story. The first charge tracks Hornet. The second charge doesn't track Hornet, but will be either higher or lower depending on how far it is above the ground currently. And the third and final charge will also track Hornet. Meaning, if it catches you mid-jump and starts charging high, it will always charge low during its second attack, but it can also charge low on its third attack if you remain on the ground. And if you're anticipating a high charge, like Sense would tell you, you're gonna be on the fucking ground, leading to players almost always getting hit by this one charge. This is a battering ram with a face. Why does it have mix-ups? Number 10, Trobbio. Okay, so I'm using the Godhome mod by Cuxon here in this footage because it just helped with convenience. So if you see a dialogue prompt popping out of the floor at any point during this fight, I'm like 90% sure that's where it's coming from. Just to let you know. This boss has a great blueprint for an exciting fight, but he's just not for some reason, at least not for me. A lot of the game's cheesiest red tools, he kind of just hard counters, so building into that might get you punished a bit. Granted, it took me almost 2 months to finally give a shit about tax, so that never really bothered me. Trobbio always gave me Hive Knight vibes with his lingering projectiles and frequent use of smoke bombs that explode in different directions, but despite his background in theater, on-screen presence feels like one of his biggest fears, which can make it easy to get greedy with damage windows and take unnecessary damage yourself. His Whirlwind is also a massive bitch to play around because it gives you very limited combat options that basically boils down to pogo his ass and wait for your next opening. All three of his main attacks, being the Whirlwind, Smoke Bombs, and Fireworks, can also be used in mid-air, which gets kind of annoying to play around because it leads to him almost never feeling like he's in a position that can be capitalized on. He's a theater major with a bad case of stage fright. I don't know how else to put it. I feel guilty for not having a good time fighting him because his music and his voice actor kick equal amounts of ass, so I'm at least giving him 1 point for a hilarious journal entry. He seemed quite happy for others to die upon the stage in pursuit of his I'm sorry, am I getting a morality lesson from the chick who wishes death on a whole colony of bugs because they smell bad? This bitch got some opinions, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. Number 9, Widow. Widow is probably the first big skill check the game ever throws at you, an encounter that exists solely to make sure you're ready for what's coming up next. And at first it kind of felt to me like she was doing her job a bit too well, but when it came time to deliver a bit further on that thought, there was no obvious or explicit reasoning for why I had more trouble with this fight than both concluding Act 1 bosses. I don't think it really has anything to do with the boss itself. I think this is just the game's way of testing your understanding of the basics. Your lack of agility here is the most present it'll probably ever feel for the rest of the game. I remember getting to this bitch the day the game released and just throwing myself at her like 10 times, and it got to a point where I considered backtracking just to make sure I didn't miss some obvious upgrade. Like, none of her attacks are even that hard to avoid or anticipate, but when all you have to your name is a dash and healing means committing to a 72 frame long animation, projectiles that move just a little too fast are suddenly enough to make you shit your pants. Number 8, Shakra. Pisses me off, this beautiful, great NPC piece of shit. She dodges way too often, and the projectiles are way too fast. That shouldn't matter. She has no phase transitions, no power poses or squaring ups, just a friendly sparring match with your girlfriend, nothing less or more. Pick one attack and just punish the living shit out of it. For me, it's the one where she dashes across the arena and clangs her rings together because she'll always turn around and throw a ring in the opposite direction, which is very easy to jump over and get a free hit in. If she's in the air or throwing rings at you, just throw your own rings back and you'll either knock her rings out of the air or you'll just flat out hit her. There's no finesse or fanfare with this one, just an endurance test of learning what you can and can't punish. Most of the harder bosses go by this logic as well. Number 7, Cradle Lace. The first phase in Lace's second encounter features both blinding speed and new attack patterns, and somehow the blinding speed ends up being way worse to deal with. Almost all of her attacks seem to travel horizontally across the arena, so you'd think just jumping over her whenever she has a telegraph would be a reliable instinct, but that one sure-you-can attack she has is meant to punish this exact impulse. She has 3 different phases this time instead of 2, and each one adds a new attack. Phase 2 at 75% HP introduces her double lunge that can switch directions if jumped over, and additional Judgment Cut hitboxes that spawn when she rises up in the air before slamming down. The Virgil Slash's attack gets reintroduced in her final phase, and this time she does it twice in a row, which surprisingly isn't nearly as annoying as it sounds. None of this by itself is anything you haven't seen from another boss prior, but having to fight around so many different tactics that all got crammed into a single boss is where the challenge comes in. Fittingly, this is the penultimate boss of Act 2, so it makes sense at least. Number 6, the Far-Field Savage Beastfly. Having on Magma Bell is just about mandatory here. Like, imagine the original Savage Beastfly boss, but one of your blue slots have been bound Godmaster style. Because Magma Bell isn't here for strategy, it's here for bullshit mitigation. The boss can now pile drive any of the 6 platforms underneath the magma, sometimes targeting 3 of them in a row, and you don't even get rewarded for luring it into one of the gaps, because not only does the boss not take damage, it just resurfaces from whatever platform you're currently standing on anyways. So a platform gets destroyed no matter what. In fact, if you're running low on fighting space, this is something you have to do to prevent the boss from just completely destroying the floor at times, because resurfacing in this way will at least cancel the rest of the attack. The open concept arena plan means there aren't any walls for the triple charge attack to bounce off of, meaning it's now way harder to trick the boss into ending it early. The Tarmites are proof that we live in a godless timeline, and delaying this side quest until Act 3 black threads the boss, doubling its max HP, which this is true for both Beastfly encounters, but it's way worse on this one because its final HP becomes 1300. I'm really trying hard to be objective here, but I cannot stand the thought of this fucktub being anywhere in top 5. This boss just needs to be, this is where it's going. I'm not putting a fucking Savage Beastfly encounter above Seth, okay? That's like, no, that's not happening. Number 5, Shrine Guardian Seth. Okay, so Seth has a backstory to his creation that I think most older fans of the games already know about, and it's so fucking cool that I'm just gonna tell you anyway, and you're just gonna sit here and listen to it. Seth Goldman was diagnosed with a cancer called Ewing sarcoma, and thanks to the Marty Lyons Foundation, he was actually able to talk to Team Cherry themselves, at which point they offered him a chance to design a character. And that character was, of course, Seth. He's one of the final and most prominent names in the credits of Silksong, earning his own section titled Extra Special Thanks. It is one of the greatest stories of genuine kindness I've ever heard come from any video game development team, and when people saw his reveal like 6 years ago, he was getting hammed up quite a bit. So even outright assuming he was gonna be one of the game's most difficult bosses still came from a decently reasonable perspective. We were as prepared as we could have been for this boss, and he's still a brick wall for half this game's player base. I'm not even gonna give you any advice, just good luck. God damn, I love this boss. Number 4, Tormented Trobbio. Be careful who you bully in high school. You might run into each other in film 103 and they could turn purple and make Tech Week really awkward or something. This boss sucks balls. Only 950 HP, which sounds unimposing, but he takes 10% less damage starting at Needle level 3 and only gets tougher from there. Bosses like Tormented Trobbio were perhaps bullied a bit more than they could handle, and now they take advantage of unsuspecting people who think they get to just play the game they fucking paid for. The smoke bombs now cover 4 directions. His fireworks attack takes a page straight out of the Pure Vessel playbook by shooting out a large cross-shaped explosion that spawns 5 AoE clusters all around the room, and his whirlwind is slightly larger and now leaves behind sparkles that also damage you. I'm just surprised they found a way to make this attack even more insufferable. Chopping him down to 40% HP triggers his second phase where he disappears into the floor to give his pyrotechnics team a stern talking to, resulting in 7 fire pillars, the 5th of which will always indicate where he reappears in the arena. And the wiki actually recommends counting off the explosions just to predict where he appears to get a cheeky jump on him. It's not that it's wrong, it's actually really good advice. That's why it's funny. If we're this desperate to get in a single hit, then maybe we just need to leave this guy the fuck alone. Number 3, the First Sinner, a second act boss with 1300 HP and raging toddler energy. I mean, shit, dying here better not trigger permadeath. This bitch is ridiculous. I really love trying to figure out what exactly is the intended penalty for dying to this boss. Ending a Steel Soul run is too steep of a setback, but refilling all my fucking tools when I wake up is suddenly too much to ask. Where is the line being drawn here, exactly? There's a symmetry this fight has with the Widow boss you faced back in Belheart, and I think that's easiest to see when the boss is shaved down to half HP and begins her second phase. And even with all your souped up movement tech and holy spider webs and shit, First Sinner still manages a frenetic pace that resembles your fight with Widow in Act 1, when experience and equipment were equally limited. This is the only fight where fully investing into ranged tactics feels just about necessary, either to keep up with her pacing or to stop her from healing. Yeah, she can heal too, by the way. Which feels even meaner when you fuck it all up and wake up without any of your tools. It is a full-time job keeping up with this bitch. Like, not even clawline feels like it's enough at times. Number 2, Skarrsinger Karmelita. I knew from the trailer 6 years ago that I was gonna fall in love with fighting this boss. Throw all the unique pre-boss enemies you want at me and force me to refight them like 26 times. She's still my favorite lady, I don't give a shit. Knowing when to be aggressive and when to dodge is key here, since it seems like doing too much of either at the wrong time is just a recipe for getting diced up. Her sickles ensure you're never completely safe at a distance, her dive attack makes you second guess your safety in the air, and her charge attack makes it to where being in the air is the only safe place to be. This fight is fucking nuts. It involves a lot of on-the-fly decision-making, and not being on-the-fly enough commonly results in you just being caught in the wrong space and taking damage. Everyone has a slightly different way of dealing with her first 2 phases, but the common similarity most of them share just comes down to hit-and-run strats. Look for punish windows and just take them when you can. I tend to squeeze in a whack right after the triple slash combo, and as she charges across the room. But those punish windows may look different for you. I don't know. Just play your own game. Survive the first 2 phases, and then make a hard pivot to tax and Cogflies when she's down to her final 500 HP. She doesn't gain any new moves or tactics on her final phase, but her attack speed basically just gets impossible to keep up with. Even if you saved all your Cogflies up to this point, they still won't do enough work by themselves to fully zero out her HP, but that's why the pouch exists. Number 1, Lost Lace. Whoa, biggest plot twist in history. Holy shit. Goddamn, Queen. Didn't know I was playing your game. Sorry. Combo mix-ups. Void Tentacles. Enhanced dashes with Void Tentacles. Bigger Void Tentacles with predetermined spawn points that double as hiding spots for Lace to ambush you. Void Blade globs that frequently launch in tandem. Virgil slashes that cover the whole arena and shave off 3 of your HP. More tentacles when she dives under. Missiles that track you a little too well. Fucking tidal waves made of razor blades. What the fuck? This is the only boss out of 46 in the game where the wiki needed to put in drop-down tabs just to fit her attacks on the 1 page. Like, Karmelita doesn't even get this treatment. Thankfully, her parry is just as easily punishable as it was when you fought her in the Cradle. Not to say this is easy, but triggering the parry does force her to commit to a pretty decently long attack animation, where immediately jumping puts you out of range of both riposte attacks. Pogo her if she's on the ground, or have the circlet on and get in some damage when she's in the air. This one move is a perfect representation of why her fight is so challenging, because almost every action gives her a couple mix-up options that you never see coming. Somersaulting can either combo into a diagonal dive or a void tentacle attack. She can now cancel her triple slash early and either combo into a parry stance or another tentacle attack depending on where you are, and if you've jumped completely over her, she can also just cancel it entirely. Her triple charge can also be canceled early in the same way, at which point she can decide between a tentacle attack and the third charge if you're within range, or lead into a somersault if you're further away, which can still be comboed into either the dive or another tentacle attack. It is impossible to have a completely accurate foretelling of what she will do next, and I think that's where most of its difficulty comes from. Even as challenging as other bosses can be, I still know Seth will always do a charge attack after his shield slam. I still know being in front of Karmelita during her triple slash ensures that she commits to that combo no matter what. You can't do this with Lost Lace. You have to know exactly how to respond to every possible movement and mix-up the game allows her to perform. That is her only counter. Let's just see how much AIDS we can pack into a single lady, said Major William Stryker, and the victim of that is just poor old Lace who didn't ask for any of this shit.